Do you feel like you've got so much to do in your day, yet you've got no time to fit it all in? You constantly feel that you're in conflict with all the things that you need to do, yet everything's already booked into your calendar except the stuff that you need to do to move forward. You've got meetings, you've got people to pick up, you've got kids to look after, you've got stuff in your day that just makes you busy, and the stuff that really truly moves your life or your business forward, you never really get round to, let alone trying to fit your health in and be consistent with your workouts, get your lunches in, or just be able to switch off at a reasonable time. This is an area of focus that I've looked at with so many clients over the last few years and really becomes a huge part of health coaching, way beyond a simple meal plan or how to do a perfect bicep curl. So, what I want to do is walk you through a recent training I did with our clients, really walking them through this own your calendar, win the day process that has become massively successful inside of our coaching program, inside Body Reset, to be able to install habits that really last. Creating a system that's reliable is one that's front of mind, is one that you regularly review, and becomes one that when you do correctly, you train your brain to look at the world a bit differently. And what I mean by that is it's not just work and then I cram everything else around it. It's if I want to be as intentional about my date night or my workout or my lunch, then it should be in the same calendar that I do my work, because there's no point having one calendar for work and one for home because there's one of me. So what I'd like to do is walk through exactly the 5-step process that we use, and hopefully it helps you install this into your own life. If you want access to the entire training that we actually did with our private clients, and also walks you through exactly how this ties into our Body Reset journal, then simply comment journal below and we'll send you through that whole training. It's one of the favorite trainings I've done of this whole year. One, it's because it's very close to home. It's one that I use and has fixed a huge problem for me in fitting everything in. And I've also seen how much of an impact it makes for a ton of clients. All right. So there's going to be 3 people that this is probably going to be very relevant for. The first one is you've got tons to do, but no time to do it, right? We all have these ideas in our head of things that we need to get done, but we haven't created the time to do it. What that ends up happening is that we feel stressed, unfocused, and we can never really shut off at the end of the day. So being able to really get away from just a long, endless to-do list and really get closer to how do we consolidate a plan that actually gets done is what I'd like to go through. The second one is we let others run our day. We constantly feel like our day is bombarded with other people's intentions rather than our own, and all of our stuff just gets thrown to the end of the list. Or 3, we simply lack focus. We have space to get things done, yet we find every reason not to do it, or that we just get busy with other stuff and we never get around to it, right? So those are really the 3 things I want to go through. Now, the way I'm going to address this is really, I think if you're listening to this on podcast, I want you to visualize this with me. I'll just get rid of this. But what we're showing here is simply 4 squares inside of a quadrant. Down in the bottom left, we've got not urgent, not important, right? That's the stuff that we just simply shouldn't be doing, but many of us end up doing and just filling our day with useless stuff. The top one here is just as important, but trickier to identify, is urgent stuff but not important, right? It's us checking our work emails for no reason at 6 a.m. when we've just got out of bed, or 9 p.m. when we're just trying to wind down, and it becomes this urgent thing that starts to stimulate our brain and make us run around like a headless chook. But it's not actually important. It doesn't actually need to be done right now, but there's an urgency that really disrupts our day and our flow. What I want to focus on is obviously the 2 on the right hand side, which is doing the stuff that's urgent and important, which again, if there's an urgent nature, most of us don't have a problem doing it because it has this dopamine spike attached to it, yet it is also important. So obviously it's stuff that helps our business or life move forward. The one quadrant, which is, if you're following me here, it's the bottom right-hand corner, the blue one, which is the not urgent, important work. And this is the one that always gets swept under the rug because we don't get that dopamine hit of it being urgent and rushed and deadlines 2 minutes from now type feeling. But it's the stuff that truly moves our business and our life forward. And I would argue that the most important stuff usually fits in this category, which is it's the stuff that we need to do way before it's ever needed, but it really sets the foundation properly for things to be done effectively, right? So that might be things like your health, right? Being able to get in a workout 3-4 times a week. It's really important stuff to keep the body strong, really improve the longevity of both your mind and body. Yet it's not urgent right now. If we waited for it to be urgent, we wished we did it 20 years ago, right? But we can use examples of this probably in relationships as much as you can business, to really look at the key things that we should be doing, but because our day is run on urgency or other people's requests, we never get round to. And I think when we get to that chunk of time, you can find a lot more satisfaction in your day by really ticking off the stuff that truly moves you forward. And I think when you start looking forward to that stuff, you can really have both an enjoyable and an incredibly productive week very quickly. And I just want to say it's very possible because I've seen it with a ton of clients. So the first thing I just want to address before we dive into the actual tactical steps is, according to the University of California, it takes 23 minutes for us to move away, like if we get distracted by a task, to come back to the task we're doing, right? Which means that if you get this little notification that comes up on your, iPad or phone or whatever, that little notification in Slack or that notification on your phone, you get pulled into a new task, and when you come back to it, it takes a bit of time for you to create that momentum. And if you think about that, most of us have 5 different ways of being messaged at any one time, and all those notifications are still on, right? We have our Slack open, we have our email open, we have a phone on, we have all of these things going on, and it's really, really hard to find. We wonder why we find it really hard to find that deep work. So for me, if I'm going into one of these deep work blocks, I'm trying to really get through a task that's important, there is literally no way to message me. My phone is turned off, or I have basically my phone's on do not disturb most of the time. So there's like 4 people that can actually get through to me. And I've got, Slack, email, everything's closed until the task is done. And that really, I bring that up to say, you have to train your brain first to be okay with turning some notifications off. Because for a lot of us, that what if moment of what if there's that one email that I need to respond to, that one time, sabotages the other 99% of times where you could actually get something done and it wasn't important, right? And I think being able to really get to a place where you're able to turn off all of that urgency for at least some portion of your day becomes a place that you have to get comfortable with first, right? So that's just kind of the first step. Before the first step is getting your brain in a place that you don't need to be always on, always available, right? And building from that. So step 1 that I want to really go through here is, and I'm skipping a couple steps when it comes to, looking at this overall, this little visual of really looking at what are we working towards, right? Get it clear on those big rocks at the start of the year. And the reason I bring this up, really looking at your health goals, your wealth and general career targets, and your relationship goals, and really getting intentional on, if I understand what's most valuable for me, I'm no longer just busy in the week for being busy. I'm very clear on what my overall targets are for the year, how I intend to achieve those, and then how do I break that down into both month and year, right? So there's a whole topic there we could look at, but I won't touch on today. The first thing that I want to address is simply, where's your to-do list? You've probably got a ton of them. Is it on your phone? Have you got it written down? Is there 3 different lists? My biggest routine that's helped me with getting more done is every single Sunday night before the week starts, is I simply write out my top 10 for the list for the week, and I take that time to really get clear on consolidating what are my top 10, and then writing next to it what's the importance of that to do 1 to 10. And this sounds really simple, but it's really, really important, because a lot of us will just say, well, they're all 10 or they're all 9. And that's exactly why we feel so flustered and we can't move forward. When you can put one as a 10 and one as an 8 and one as a 6 and one as a 7, you get to a place where you're like, cool, well, it's kind of obvious which one I need to tackle first. Because otherwise we just try scatter all of them and try to get them all done in some kind of weird order in the week. And always the important stuff gets left behind at the expense of the urgent stuff, right? So the first step here is write down your top 10 priorities. The second one here is then review those priorities and put a performance review or a priority of those to-dos, because without it, everything feels urgent and our brain feels very scattered very quickly. The third thing that we want to dive into becomes more of a space of looking at your current calendar, right? So rather than just going to, cool, these are the to-dos, I'm going to do all of them on Monday, take the time to review what's already currently in your calendar, because this is, again, a simple step, but one most people don't do, where you might find that Wednesday and Thursday is already completely booked with client appointments or travel or whatever the thing might be. So we need to know that there's not as much capacity to get that work done. And this really allows you to get to a spot where we're no longer beating ourselves up for all the stuff we can't do or we said we'd do, because we give ourselves a reasonable amount of time and put it on the right days to get that stuff done. So I look at my calendar, I see that Wednesday and Thursday is out, I see I've got a little bit of time on Monday, and I've got a good chunk of time on Thursday that I can reallocate. I'm now blocking in that time, because for most of us, we've got the reason meetings happen and where we have to meet other people is because we're showing up for someone else. Yet for most, we don't show up for ourselves. And this is like, the big reason why most people don't get workouts in, because they're not showing up for someone else. They're showing up for themselves, and they're not holding that as highly. And that's why it's not in their calendar. So just coming back to the first point of when we're trying to create consistency with any task, show me your calendar. Let's build this in and put it in one spot. We don't have a personal calendar or a business calendar. We have a calendar for us. Where are we, what time, and what are we fitting into our week? And this really allows us to optimize towards training our brain to focus on what the task is at hand and being able to really buy back or pull back our time by using our calendar to reflect what we actually are doing. And this is quite a confronting space because a lot of the time you'll find that you're wasting half of your day doing random shit for other people or asking questions or being available, right? And we never actually move forward with our role or our life because we're constantly running around. Now, for a lot of us in the room and for many of us, it'll be the carers, the people that are always looking after everyone else, the ones that really just are givers overall. We tend to be in a spot where we're like, well, we want to be available. We enjoy being available. And I think the goal of this is not to be so rigid that it's all about you. The goal is to optimize your time to do the things you love doing and do more of it rather than getting pulled in 10 different directions and never feeling like you've had anything done. All right. So when you've got that to-do list, the next step is to add the priorities to it. The next one is to take it to your calendar, see where you've got space to actually add it in, and train your brain and build the discipline of only adding in the one or two things that are on the top of the priority list, rather than trying to cram everything into a day and really setting yourself up to fail, right? Once we've got those done, we're then blocking these new to-dos into the calendar directly, and we start to build the skill of assessing how long something will actually take by blocking it in and assessing, is this a 20-minute task, is this a 2-hour task, how much time do I require to get this thing done? And a lot of times, it might take a couple weeks, if not months, to start to reshuffle your week. Where are meetings going? Where is that deep work time? Where is that writing going? Where is the emails? Whatever your role or that creative endeavor involves, how do I block that into the week? When you apply the same process to the productivity of your workday as you now do to the date night or the family time or the workouts, you can really create a lot more clarity or a lot more, build the skill of switching off, right? You can switch on to get the job done. You can switch off at the end of the day. When we have this vagueness of I need to get this thing done sometime, we're never really truly able to switch off, and we might spend more time with our family, but it's not quality time. When we can get back to clear blocks where we pull ourselves away to get something done, when we're with our family or we're in that meeting, we can focus on being in that space, being where our feet are. And I think it's a really nice way to look at it. Okay, so that's 4 steps. We've got do the to-dos, add the priorities, assess the calendar, block your times into the calendar. All right, those are your 4. The last one here is we get to our next Sunday review, right? Which is what went well, what could be better. And this is probably the most powerful part of it because we don't truly learn unless we assess, we review, we reflect on what actually worked. And when we get to that spot, we can start to look at, well, actually, locking in my workouts at 2:00 just didn't work. I constantly got bombarded by other requests and other things, and that was a time in the day that's really busy. But if I put this at 6 a.m. before I drop off the kids at school or before I go into that first meeting, it actually was pretty consistent, right? So I'm going to stick to my workouts at this time, right? My deep work block on a Tuesday didn't work because I've got the marketing meeting or this other thing that just keeps getting in the way. I'm going to move it to a Wednesday, and I found that I got a lot more rhythm with that. I'm actually looking forward to it, right? And if you give yourself that little review, what went well, what could be better, and you build it into your calendar and you build that cadence, you build that reflection, you start to build a skill that very few people have, which is finding time for you, not just for other work stuff where you've got to show up for others. When you assign that same priority to yourself and the goals for you, both work, health, wealth, relationship-wise, you really get to a spot where you create a lot more clarity on how that day runs and where those key problem areas tend to come in. All right. So I wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter and sharper around how to own your calendar, the conversation that I'm constantly having. And as you can imagine, a lot of nuances that come with that as well. So as I mentioned before, if you want to dive into this whole framework, get access to the entire training, which was an hour-long training, walking through exactly what this looked like with our clients, then simply comment below calendar and we'll send this through. If you're listening to this on podcast or you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see a link below, or you can simply go to the Facebook group and pick this up from one of our team. But honestly, I find this really helpful, and it's the cornerstone to getting things done. And if you're a busy human, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate, and it's a case of reclaiming some of that time. If you're not using your calendar, you're leaving one of the biggest gems on the table to get your time back. So I hope that gave some insight into what that looks like, gives you a couple of ideas to look at, and hopefully inspired you to dive a bit more into what that looks like. All right, until next time, see ya.